Have you ever wondered why opportunities seem to appear everywhere for some people, while others spend years working just as hard and never seem to catch a break? Most people answer that question with one word: luck. I don't. Because after spending years studying successful men and women from every walk of life, I've come to a very different conclusion. Opportunities rarely come to the lucky. They come to the prepared. The strange part is that most opportunities never announce themselves. They don't arrive carrying a sign that says, "This is the moment that will change your life." Instead, they usually appear disguised as ordinary work, ordinary conversations, ordinary problems, or ordinary responsibilities that everyone else overlooks. That's why two people can stand in exactly the same place, work in exactly the same company, meet exactly the same people, and one builds an extraordinary life, while the other spends years wondering what went wrong. The difference isn't opportunity. The difference is the way they think. Today I want to show you how to develop that way of thinking. Because once you understand it, you'll never look at your work, your career, or your future the same way again. Many years ago, I discovered a story that changed my life. I've returned to it countless times because every time I hear it, it reminds me that success rarely begins somewhere else. The story was told by a remarkable man named Russell Herman Conwell. He was a lawyer, a newspaper editor, later a minister. But none of those titles explain why millions of people still remember him. His greatest contribution began with a simple question. One day, several young boys came to his church. They wanted something they couldn't afford: an education. They had the desire. They had the determination. But they lacked the money. After they left, Conwell asked himself a question that most people never ask. Why shouldn't there be a great university for young men willing to work but unable to pay? That question became an obsession. Instead of forgetting it, he acted. For years he traveled across America giving lecture after lecture. Not a few dozen, not a few hundred, more than 6,000. Imagine that. Thousands of audiences, thousands of train rides, thousands of evenings spent sharing one message. Those lectures eventually raised millions of dollars and led to the creation of one of America's great universities. But people weren't coming simply to hear about education. They came because of one unforgettable story, a story called Acres of Diamonds. And I believe it contains one of the greatest lessons about opportunity ever told. Picture this. An African farmer lives on a modest piece of land. He isn't wealthy, but neither is he poor. His farm provides everything he needs. Then one day he begins hearing incredible stories. Stories about men discovering diamond mines. Stories about fortunes being made almost overnight. The more he listens, the more restless he becomes. Slowly, his own land begins to look ordinary, too ordinary. Every acre he once appreciated now feels like a reminder of what he doesn't have. He starts believing the life he wants must exist somewhere else. Have you ever noticed how dangerous comparison can be? The moment we become fascinated by someone else's opportunity, we often stop seeing the value of our own. That is exactly what happened to this farmer. He convinced himself that his future wasn't beneath his feet. It was somewhere beyond the horizon. So he sold his farm, left everything behind, and devoted his life to searching for diamonds. Across rivers, across mountains, across countries, always believing the next place would finally contain what he was looking for. Years passed. His savings disappeared. His hope faded. Eventually, broken by disappointment, he took his own life, a tragic ending. But believe me, that isn't the saddest part of the story, not even close. Because while that farmer was searching everywhere else, the man who purchased his farm was simply living an ordinary day. One afternoon, he walked beside a small stream that crossed the property. Something caught his attention. It looked like nothing more than an unusual stone. He picked it up, not because he thought it was valuable, simply because it looked different. He carried it home and placed it on a shelf. Days later, a visitor noticed it. He stopped in his tracks, looked at the stone, then turned to the farmer and asked, "Do you have any idea what this is?" The farmer smiled. "No." The visitor held the stone in his hands for a moment before quietly saying, "This is one of the largest rough diamonds I've ever seen." Can you imagine that moment? The man wasn't standing in a diamond mine because he had searched farther. He was standing in one because he had looked more carefully. Naturally, they began exploring the land, and what they discovered changed everything. That wasn't the only diamond. The property was filled with them. One of the richest diamond fields ever discovered had been there all along. The first farmer had walked over those diamonds every single day. He worked above them, lived above them, dreamed above them, yet never recognized them. Why? Because he didn't know what a diamond looked like before it had been polished. He was searching for brilliance, while ignoring rough stones. Now let me ask you something. What if we're making the very same mistake? What if we've become so convinced that success exists somewhere else that we've stopped looking carefully at the opportunities already surrounding us? Perhaps another business isn't the answer. Perhaps another city isn't the answer. Perhaps another career isn't the answer. Perhaps the real change doesn't begin with moving somewhere else. Perhaps it begins with seeing differently. Because this story was never really about diamonds. It was about perception. It was about preparation. It was about learning to recognize value before the rest of the world sees it. And that's where almost everyone misunderstands the lesson. They remember the diamonds, but they forget why one man found them while the other never did. That difference changes everything. And in the next part, I'm going to show you the exact mental habit that allows successful people to recognize opportunities long before anyone else does, not through luck, but through the way they've trained themselves to think. So why did one man spend his entire life searching for opportunity, while another discovered it almost by accident? It wasn't luck. It wasn't intelligence. It wasn't education. It was preparation. That's the part of the story most people never see. The second farmer didn't recognize a diamond because he was gifted. He recognized it because he noticed something everyone else would have ignored. And that raises an important question. How do you train your mind to notice opportunities? After studying successful people for many years, I discovered they all share one habit. They don't wake up asking, "What can I get today?" They wake up asking, "How can I become more valuable today?" That single question changes the direction of your mind. Most people search for money. Successful people search for value. And here's why. Money always follows value. Opportunities always follow value. Recognition always follows value. If you become more valuable than you were yesterday, the world eventually notices. It cannot ignore you forever. So let me share a simple method, not theory, a practical way of thinking you can begin using tomorrow morning. I call it the opportunity mindset. It has 5 simple steps. Step 1. Before your day begins, ask yourself one question. Where can I create more value today than I created yesterday? Notice I didn't say, how can I make more money? Money is the result. Value is the cause. Successful people focus on causes. Average people focus on results. The moment your attention shifts toward contribution, your mind begins searching for ways to improve. And once your mind begins searching, it starts finding. Step 2. Ask yourself, what problem is everyone around me accepting that could be improved? Every business, every profession, every family, every organization exists because it solves problems. The people who solve the biggest problems receive the biggest rewards. Don't train yourself to look for opportunities. Train yourself to look for problems, because hidden inside every problem is an opportunity waiting for someone prepared enough to recognize it. Step 3. Become a student of your work. This may be the most overlooked principle in modern success. Most people know more about sports, politics, or celebrities than they know about the profession that feeds their family. Imagine a physician who stopped learning. Would you trust him? Imagine a pilot who never studied new technology. Would you board the airplane? Of course not. Then why should we expect extraordinary success while remaining ordinary students? Spend 1 hour each day learning. Read, take notes, study your industry, learn where it's going, learn what people need. Knowledge compounds quietly. Then one day, people call it luck. It never was. Step 4. Begin thinking like an owner. Even if you don't own the company, ask yourself, if this business belonged to me, what would I improve first? That single question changes your identity. Employees wait for instructions. Owners look for improvements. Employees complete tasks. Owners create solutions. Long before someone gives you greater responsibility, begin acting like the person capable of carrying it. Preparation always comes before promotion, never after. Step 5. Act immediately. This is where almost everyone fails. They see an opportunity, and then they wait. They overthink. They hesitate. They postpone. Successful people understand something simple. Small actions create momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates bigger opportunities. Don't wait until you're certain. Begin while you're still learning. Every successful person you've ever admired once acted before they felt completely ready. Now perhaps you're wondering, why does this way of thinking work so well? Because your mind is always searching, whether you realize it or not. If you spend your day thinking about limitations, your mind finds evidence. If you spend your day looking for excuses, your mind finds excuses. But if you deliberately train yourself to ask better questions, something remarkable begins happening. Your attention changes. You notice conversations you once ignored. Ideas begin connecting. Problems suddenly become possibilities. Nothing outside has changed. You have. And when your perception changes, your world appears to change with it. That's why I've often said that opportunity isn't something you chase. It's something you become capable of recognizing. I'd like to leave you with a challenge. For the next 7 mornings, before you begin your day, write the answers to these 3 questions. Where can I create more value today? What problem can I solve today? What can I learn today that will make me more valuable tomorrow? Carry those questions with you. Don't force the answers. Simply remain aware. You may be surprised how differently your mind begins to operate. Not because life suddenly becomes easier, but because you've stopped looking for polished diamonds and learned to recognize them while they're still rough. If there's one lesson I hope you'll remember long after this video ends, it's this. Most people spend their lives searching for a better opportunity. Very few spend their lives becoming a better observer. The first approach creates frustration. The second creates success. Because the greatest opportunities in your life may already be around you, waiting, not for better luck, not for better timing, but for a better way of thinking. Thank you for listening. And remember, the richest acres of diamonds you'll ever discover may be the ones you're standing on today.